Hi, my name is Bronwyn Byrnes and I'm a corporate trainer here in Dubai. Hi, my name is Bronwyn Byrnes and I'm a corporate trainer here in Dubai. Hi, my name is Bronwyn Byrnes and I'm a corporate trainer here in Dubai. One of the best things I ever did for corporate training was to learn improvisation. And improv, we're doing it every day. We're doing it in our everyday life. But really there are some fantastic techniques you can learn to help you think on the spot and speak on the spot within your corporate training. Hi, my name is Bronwyn Byrnes and I'm a corporate trainer here in Dubai. One of the best things I ever did for corporate training was to learn improvisation. And improv, we're doing it every day. We're doing it in our everyday life. But really there are some fantastic techniques you can learn to help you think on the spot and speak on the spot within your corporate training or coaching. So please join us this August 10th, coming up on Monday, 2200 hours PST. You can register for this training at www.tig.org.pk, and I look forward to bringing you some of the secrets of improv.
Don't miss this exciting opportunity to learn at Pakistan's first learning festival.
Do you understand the difference between disability and being differently abled?
All about learning with fun.
Simply because this is for the first time we, the trainers, are paying for you to come and get trained. Jeete raho.
Be a change agent.
Learning is unlimited.
At LearnFest.
Turn yourself on.
Get ready for series of highly engaging and powerful training sessions at LearnFest.
See you there.
All right, guys. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to TRG Learn Fest, and it's the night section, man. I'm so excited. I'm really, amazed by the amount of, energy these people have put inside. Congratulations, Umer, and the entire, TRG Learn Fest team for putting in the sleepless nights to making this happen. We're going to just wait for, a few individuals to tune in. My topic today is about LAN-GAUGE or LAN-CAGE. So in the prehistoric, in the medievals, like when we basically had no form of communication, we used language in terms of our communication. So it was basically an instrument to how to measure what we're basically talking to other people. And then also in certain perspectives and certain times, language also cages us in certain aspects. So we're going to go into the details. We're going to go into the depth of it. And I'm really excited. I want you guys to be punching in all the comments. At least, let's start off with the comments of all the segments that you guys attended today. Which segment inspired you the most? I mean, that's, I think, the first thing that I can go on top of my mind. For me personally, I was up there early in the morning, and it was about 9 o'clock in the morning. No, 10 o'clock we started. So I was there from 9, and I was like desperately waiting what's going to be happening. And the first session that I rock up with is Farhad Karamali's, and what a mind-blowing session, man. I could learn so much from it. In fact, I didn't even just choose to learn from it. I actually took the learnings and I actually started applying it there and then. So when I have a clients, mostly what I do is neuro-linguistic programming. I'm a therapist, and I do timeline therapy and hypnotherapy and coaching. So one of my clients, jumped in. And how many of you guys remember? So raise your hand if you remember what, Farhad talked about, comedy and fun. Beautiful analogy. So somebody came and he said, Arsalan, I'm really depressed. And I looked at him in the eyes and I said, hey, wait on for a minute. To mere saath comedy kar rahe ho. And he looked at me like, what do you mean? I said, well, it's one-sided. You're depressed. I'm not depressed. And since I'm not engaged, I'm not having fun over here. Let's have some fun. Get me depressed and then we can maybe have fun. And he started bloating in laughter. It took me again another 1 hour to get him depressed back, and so that I understand the nature and the core root of the problem. But how have we made the depression as a word such a big taboo? Something that basically requires so massive interventions, although it doesn't. I specialize in depression and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's so easy. It's just our internal representation, our internal neurological cognition, basically how we interpret meanings to the words that we use. And that's phenomenal. I think right now what I'm going to be sharing with you is all my life, lessons. I think, TRG Learn Fest is where, trainers speak from their heart. This is not about content. We're beyond content over here. We're talking about all our personal experiences, our life, our journeys, and our everything. Now, language is a really, really important thing, and that's why I'm personally excited. I mean, if you come to the existence of the first ever language that was ever used, maybe it was like, God saying, let there be light. And there was light. God said, be, and it was. Be there and happen, and it happened. So that's the first of all languages. Even, God had, communicated with us in a format of a linguistic, mechanism. Even the prophets that you have communicate, in the words of the things that were bestowed to them in the word of God. So that's how it basically becomes. All the prophets were given the power and the way through words. And let's talk about the devil even. Even the devil whispers. Even the devil uses language and linguistics in terms of communication. So that's how it is, so it's like, it's one of those things where God says, read in the name, so that's the linguistic aspect of it. So we're going to talk about how language can basically help us to enable. When I was doing this session, I had a very brief conversation with Umer, and he said, Arsalan, I got to get you to, this keynote session where you can talk about language and how linguistics and in our cognitive thinking help form internal representation. How does, basically coaching or any other therapeutic process lead us to taking more actions? By the way, you guys are all here because you guys want to take some action. You're here because you want to gauge, you want to measure your sense of language. You don't want the language to cage you. Now, it does cage you at certain times. With me having spent so many millions of rupees, in terms of my personal development and education, still, sometimes language is a crisis situation. So what does language really imply? I mean, ever heard about the quotation that I was born intelligent, but education ruined me? Kind of like a phenomena, right? So it happened. So, one of the times that I basically go and interact with individuals, you are always constantly learning. Now, it does not mean that, if you're caged, you're something that is basically disowned or bad. It's okay to be caged. It's okay to, basically go through that, sense of process. But then from being caged to basically being able to gauge and measure your communications. And that's perfectly okay. So when I was in my past, I had phenomenal things of training. But by the way, who wants life that is easy? So I want to make it tough for myself. So when I was in the fraternity, people contacted me, and, one of the trainers, really nice guy in the training fraternity, he came up and he said, Arsalan, NLP, it's kind of like a cool thing, but it's a placebo effect. And then I got caged. In that communication. And I went back home and I thought to myself, hey, it is placebo effect. At the end of the day, it is. But then I thought to myself, what are the trainers doing? I mean, of course, even the trainers that are basically communicating are also creating a placebo effect. And I thought to myself, holy shit, why am I basically caging myself if it is placebo effect? What's so bad about placebo effect? I think it generates the most awesome results in the moment. I loved it when, Kamran and Shireen Naqvi in the beginning, they were talking about change happens in the moment. We want to make the most of that moment. We want to understand what internal representation shifted that basically helped us to understand more meaningful way of how to spread our life and how to live our life. It's like, them basically commenting and basically, advocating that there's always learning. It's always learning. You go to a training session and, basically, even if it was one of the worst training sessions in the world, you're still learning. You're still learning about, the factors and the effective and phenomena that, what not to do in training. So it's always learning. You're either learning or then you're learning even more. So it's all about the parable of learning and how you basically get out of the trap of the cage of the words and the labels that we give to ourselves in communication, and to really, really, start living our life. Living is what we really, really want. Again, people would come and say, hey, Arsalan, but it's a pseudoscience, NLP. It's a pseudoscience. Again, I'm caged. I'm going into my house. I'm like closing the door. What is pseudoscience? And I Googled and I figured out that it's okay for something to be a pseudoscience. First of all, NLP is not as it's not a science. Anything that is pseudoscience first has to qualify for becoming a science. Human behavior is so, rapidly shifting and changing. It is so subjective in nature that you cannot cage it in certain mechanism. It requires the sense of placebo effect. Even if you're the core skill trainer or the knowledge-based trainer or the attitudinal trainer, it always has a perspective and parable of shifting human behavior to various interventions that you can possibly think of. And that's what we're really, really looking at. And these are the phenomenal things that I enjoy. Having a little bit fun with it as well. COVID-19, it was a really, really great, phenomena to happen in the world. Basically, it helped us to basically break in sense of our egos and ethos and be out there in the market to basically try something and experiment something with very, very new variations. I think it helped us to discipline ourselves. It helped us to muscle more in terms of doing more. If there wasn't any crisis, would we learn? Would we grow? So the growth, I think, is a parable of the crisis situation that happens. Again, going on to some even much more funnier instances in terms of LAN-GAUGE or LAN-CAGE and how language cages us is also some things that have basically happened in the past as well. So, for example, COVID-19 was not scary for me. COVID-19 is great. I mean, I had my son who was born in COVID-19, which is cool. A lot of blessings came to me indefinitely in COVID-19. That was not the challenge. The challenge was, what was COVID-19 for me? Is when the time I was sitting back at my home, I remember it was like Ramzan maybe, and I was sitting back and I was reflecting on my stuff and my mobile phone started ringing. It goes like ding, it goes like ding, 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 and over 100 messages. And then I go and I check my messages and I'm like trying to look into it. What's happening? Hey, what's happening? Is it my birthday? No, it's not my birthday. Am I getting engaged again? No, I'm married. Oh shit, I shouldn't be even talking about that. So I'm like checking my cell phone. And I comment, hey, are you watching Facebook? Are you seeing YouTube? I'm like, no, what happened? It was somebody's, said that NLP is fitna. And I go like, I bang my head and I go like, holy shit, okay, fine, it's a fitna, fine, okay, cool. So what do you want me to do about it? And then, they go on in terms of saying that, no, but you got to go and comment. You got to go and talk about it. I said, no, I'm not going to comment and talk about it. But then I did go and see the video. I wanted to understand the perspective. So then I basically went up to all my, colleagues and I said, okay, fine, you want to play? Let's play even harder. Let's try to play even something a little bit greater. So I said, yeah, it is fitna. NLP is fitna. And in fact, not only NLP is fitna, it's the language and the linguistics that's fitna. So language itself is such a, probable cause of a lot of things that are happening, is how we linguistically attribute things in our, daily routines. So I went in and I acknowledged, I said, it's a great, learning for somebody to learn from that perspective. But let's look at it in certain contexts and perspectives. How could language be that? So now I'm going to talk about some Illuminati stuff. So we're going to have really good fun. Umer, if something happens to you in terms of TRG logo, that's not me. Okay, this is just triangle. We're talking about Illuminati stuff. So, but again, coming to the cause of it, NLP is a language pattern, is a linguistic pattern. Now, anything could be fitna. Anything could be fitna that is basically used in a wrong context, in the terms of basically not using the language correctly or moderately. For example, I'll give you how even if I had to make a statement or comment, I could say English language itself is basically also a complex structure. Now let's look at it. Has anybody ever heard about voodoo, basically economics? Google about voodoo economics and you're going to have a blast of it. So we're going to see decipher of language, how it could basically cage us in a moment of time. So for example, when people basically learn their vowels in the kindergarten, what I'm trying to basically understand, and we want to basically get this very meaningful because we're understanding mental cognition. We're also seeing the subconscious and unconscious implications of every single word that we basically use and utter. So let's say if you're practicing our vowels, I would want to pronounce our vowels exactly as they are. I wouldn't attribute them to an acronym like, for example, A-E-I-O-U. A-E-I-O-U. Unconscious implications. Let's think about it. Let's have fun over here. So A-E-I-O-U. It kind of like says unconsciously or subconsciously has an implications I-O-U. Voodoo economics, right? Suppress the market in the industry in terms of capitalistic economics, that everybody has to owe something to somebody. Again, it's just for fun. It's a hypothetical. It's not fact, but it's plausible. We're looking at plausible. We're not looking at facts here at the moment, but we're just having fun when somebody would give an outrageous statement in terms of any context. So let's do that. Let's say about another principle of economics, when somebody says, "I am doing fine." And now let's look at the subconscious implications of I am doing fine. Now, is it fine or is it that fine that we pay? So are we supposed to pay the fine or is it presupposing fine? But linguistics are confusing, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of like cool. So for example, when somebody calls you, but with the vowels also, there's a funny attribution. So even if you were to say it, let's say somebody was Urdu speaking and he was trying to learn vowels in English, he would say, A-E-I-O-U. So, I mean, it kind of like, goes very differently in Urdu linguistics. Again, when somebody asked a question and you don't know the answer and you go like, I'm afraid I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm afraid. Why should you be afraid? Why can't you be awesome? It's awesome. Okay, fine. I didn't anticipate this, but I'm going to anticipate it more. Changing your linguistic, changes your body language, changes your physiological response to the way we do. Why do we say there are weekdays? Like weekdays, weekdays. No, I have a huge set of whole strong days. I'm gonna linguistically reframe my mind to thinking that there are stronger days. I want to have strong days. I don't want to have weekdays. Again, plausible, not a fact. Again, but again, it's a plausible implication. We're not trying to, basically mock anything or anything. It has unconscious implications. And then people come up, and they say, Arsalan, I have grief, I have depression. Well, sure, and I know the science now that you guys also understand with me, or what you're going with me, is that we can also attribute that people, the language that they use will also determine the internal representation, will represent the way they present and talk about the facts that they're talking about. Anything basically could be very subjective. Human behavior itself is very subjective. Even psychology, would be a part science and part, pseudoscience. Again, because it's gauging human implications. And we want to also see the linguistic meaning. Is it caging us or is it basically liberating us? So vocabulary can slave you massively. Vocabulary is really, really important. I want you guys, one learning thing that you could take from this session is to revisit your sense of vocabulary. Now, how do I decipher if somebody's successful or unsuccessful? A lot of subjective definitions to successful and unsuccessful. Again, but with perspective of today's topic, let's try to see what would be, the vocabulary of champions. Now, vocabulary of champions, if you ever come across, I'm sure you must have attended a lot of beautiful trainers. If you see their linguistic patterns, they're using really powerful adjectives. They're using really powerful adverbs to support those adjectives. And they're using a lot of verbs, and that too also in ing form. So what they're actually doing is they're taking something that is nominalized, which is a noun, and they're converting it into linguistically a verb, which is putting it into action, which is like ing form. Let's try to see the meaning of it. So even when they're using adjectives, they're really, clean with their adjectives. For example, if I ask a successful guy, what are things going on for you with TRG LearnFest? And if their reply is, I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to learn from this. Now, of course, I'm going to learn. Learn would be a verb here. But nevertheless, we want to basically make it more actionable. We want to have action oriented to it. So when you want to put action into it, just convert it into ing form. Successful people would say, I'm learning. I'm not learn. I don't want to learn. I'm learning. They're like in the present tense. They're like doing. It communicates the neurocognitive, approach, and it helps you to take basically massive amount of action. It basically enables you to shift your internal representation in the moment to take really, really good massive amount of action in your daily life. So to avoid the trap of the language, to use the language that helps you to basically create the transformation. And we want to create that transformation, because when you say, when individuals are talking about depression, we're going to talk about what depression really is and what could be even other ways. And how does depression cage people? And how could depression also basically be used as measurement of understanding our linguistic patterns in our daily life? So I prepared a beautiful, presentation for you guys. I don't know if my team members are there. If we could have the slides, I want to have a lot of fun right now. So if you have anybody on my slides, I've emailed them. And we want to basically talk and go a little bit deeper in terms of the slides that we have. That's going to be really, really fun. While they get to arrange the slides for us, there are a few things that I would also want to talk about in that context as well. So language would also basically require a lot of positive affirmations. But again, affirmations that are put into action, actionability, the ing format, the way we basically would want to decipher how language works for us. What is the absolute language, though? What would be something that is, absolute in its true context? Now, people who are brothers and sisters who are following the Christianity faith, people who are following Islamic faith, and people have a lot of faiths that they follow. And no matter what faith you follow through, if you're following your book of God, that would become the most absolute language in terms of your beliefs, in terms of your value system, in terms of your, meta programs and your metacognition. It's going to become the most absolute thing. So for example, with majority of Muslims, as we are Muslims, we basically look at language in terms of, helping us to create crystal clear expressions. Now, let's say if English was not our mother tongue and we were learning English, so we would learn two words. We're going to, create a vocabulary in our mind. So we're going to create a vocabulary, let's say, of morning, which is the daytime, morning. And we're also going to create a vocabulary which is called mourning, which is like crying. So, and of course, because it's not our first language, and when we're going to talk about, hey, good morning. Now, good morning, is it morning or is it morning? Again, confusing letters. But what happens to our unconscious implications of that? And these are the unconscious, but these are all plausible. So, but in, if you're following our faith, and we would basically have a derivative word from how to basically greet somebody. So in Arabic language, it has least amount of those perspectives. So it's like Assalamu alaikum, which is very crystal clear in terms of the meaning that is being communicated in terms of internal representation. Again, if English was somebody's first language, again, it will be very plausible for them not to land up into the negative structure. But for somebody for whom English might not be a first language, it could have a very neurocognitive association unconsciously, not consciously. So this gives me to a what if question. I want to take what if questions. Let's take what if questions. So all the smokers in the room. So anybody who smokes, or somebody or your loved one that basically smokes. Let's take a frame for it. And the unconscious implication of it. I hope my pharmaceutical friends and doctors and medical doctors don't ban me from saying this. This is going to be very, this is going to be very direct as well. So let's talk about it. So when you smoke cigarettes. So first they were cigarettes, they were sold, they were just cigarettes. There was the packet. It talked about the branding, the marketing, every good aspect of the smoking. But then all of a sudden, cancer uprose. And the medical doctors, basically, they put a ban that on the cigarette package, you got to have a very disgusting picture And you got to have a note over there: smoking kills. Smoking causes gangrene. Now, I tried a social experiment. So I kind of bought like 5-6 packets which have really horrible pictures on them, and I gave it to a chain smoker. And I saw the chain smoker, looked at it and said like, this is ugly. No, I'm not going to take into this account of smoke. And I said, okay, fine, don't. But then after a second, he just took the cigarette out and he bumped it up. So what happens is that now every time he smokes, he's reading smoking kills. It's like, for example, one of the training, very basic rule of training. If I told you, don't think of a pink elephant, what are you subconsciously thinking of or unconsciously thinking of? You're thinking of a pink elephant. Now, would that mean, again, it's a what if, it's plausible. So what if the death and the cancer was actually caused by you saying to yourself in terms of your internal neurology, smoking kills, and that's why it kills you indirectly? But now I'm not advocating that you should smoke. Don't smoke. Smoking is injurious to health. But how many times would we want to basically go to the root cause of why one is smoking and shifting their parable in terms of deciphering it? So I have the slides here. Let's look at these slides, and I still want you to have fun. So this is what happened. My brain is like running like a matrix, so whenever somebody's talking in language, I'm deciphering it word to word. So if you see this small ticker and picture, it says a statement: if your salary is your only source of income, you are one step away from poverty. Now, this was shared, in terms of basically a group, and they basically shared it as a motivational quote. Now, this is very motivational, isn't it? I mean, it presupposes that if you're only a salary person and your salary is the only source of income, you're gonna be poor, baby. You're gonna hit poverty no matter what. But then what I did is I said, no, that's a generalization, because I'm seeing it from a very different perspective. I'm seeing it for the neurocognitive, associations that are created in different mindsets. So if you go to the second slide, now I want you to see a little bit different. So I'm going to break all the words in the next slide, and let's look at all these words. So it says if. Now, any statement that starts with if is a cause and effect. If he does this, then I will do this. It's a cause and effect statement. So if is cause and effect. Your is a set of awareness. Salary is a nominalization. It's a noun. It's not actionable. It's something that I can't carry around. It's not tangible. It's just a metaphor in my brain. And then it's waiting to be denominalized. Is your only is a modal operator. And it's basically implies either necessity or it implies possibility. Now, then again, it says source. Source is an awareness. We want to understand. It's like a noun, but it's like a source. Of income. Income, again, is a nominalization. Nothing is so what if somebody sets his goal? I want you to set a goal. I want to have a high income. Do you think your cognition is going to align with that? No, it won't, because you're not specific with it. So if you're not specific with it, you're going to take massive actions. Again, it's a noun, it's a nominalization. You are one step away from poverty. Again, a very generic nominalization. So if you see the statement, it's a broadband generalization. Looks very motivational on the front of it, but it's a generalization. It's like a statement if I code all women should not drive. Man, that's a sick statement, right? I mean, why shouldn't women drive? I mean, it's a presupposition in the mind, basically, which is such a big generalization. Just because I saw one female driver who wasn't driving good enough, it gives me the authenticity to basically discredit all other female drivers. So this statement, who does this statement hurt? This statement hurts the job people. I mean, think about it. It's really empowering for an entrepreneur, but it really hurts the sentiments of the job individuals. Your parents, your father, your mother, from one single source of income made a house. You today, being an entrepreneur, might not be able to even buy a flat. You guys might have multiple sources of incomes. Does that mean you're not? Poverty is subjective to your sense of salary, description to it. So it might break me. So I would tell my father, Dad, I gotta do 3 business. I gotta put my money in bonds. I gotta put my money in tax. I gotta put my money over there. I gotta put it in interest rates. And my dad's gonna look at me and say, Arsalan, why don't you just wake up in the morning and do your goddamn job? So my dad wouldn't resonate with that. And for me to create in terms of me being able to respect somebody's model of the world. So when somebody says NLP is a fitna, I don't have to fight that individual. I got to respect. I said, dude, you got a point there. I want to diagnose. I'm hungry. I don't want language to cage me. I want it to basically liberate me, and I want to gauge every single measurement of it. So if you take the statement, it's a broadband generalization. Now let's look at it into even. I love making things complex. If this session confuses you, write me back through an email. Put a comment back that this is confusing, and it's a good thing to be confused because confusion means that you're about to have a breakthrough. You're going to learn so much about the unconscious use of language today than you might have ever heard about it in previous sense. So if you go to the next slide, we want to see now a multi-dimensional to this very same statement. I'm just taking one statement and I'm just bisecting it in terms of understanding how it's being used. So in the next slide, you will basically have 4 quadrants. Once the team members put it on the second slide, you're going to have 4 quadrants. And these are really beautiful quadrants. I want you to, a little bit maybe understand them. So we've got a theorem. We had quadrants. Farhad made our quadrants, which was really amazing content. So I broke this into 4 quadrants. I said that there's a theorem. Now, theorem is a normal statement where the A statement is positive and the B statement is positive. I'm taking the first statement to be positive is if your salary is your only source of income. That's statement A. Statement B, you're 1 step away from poverty. That's statement B. So if it's positive and positive, it's a theorem. But let's look at a converse of it. If your salary is not your basically source of income, you're 1 step away from poverty. Now that's a strain that confuses the hell out of, but it helps us in terms of making decision making. Now, when we're saying this statement, it has an implication, neurological implication. Let's see the inverse one. So we're going to keep A as positive, but we're going to make B as negative. We're going to see if your salary is your only source of income, you are not 1 step away from poverty. Gives a very different meaning. I'm going to explain all those meanings. Now let's look at the non-mirror image reverse question, which is minus A and minus B. So if your salary is not only your source of income, you are not 1 step away from poverty. Now, I'm not really concerned about the theorem and the converse, but I am, in fact, I'm really particularly interested in inverse and non-mirror image reverse. Why am I interested in inverse? Let's try to look at inverse for a while. You see, when you say if your salary is not your only source of income, you're not 1 step. It kind of presupposes the C-suite and executive individuals. How many of you would agree that the CEOs, some CEOs or some people on the job who are business development heads or business unit heads have more salary or earn more salary and fringes and benefits compared to an entrepreneur? Yes or no? It gives a very different decision-making sense. So there are CEOs, there are CEOs who earn more than I make, man. Come on. I mean, they just got one job and they're still basically making, a lot of, income. Again, we don't want the statement to cage us. If it's really good for the entrepreneurs, we want the entrepreneurs to take inspiration from it. But if you're a job person, I think you're doing also a fantastic job. If you have got a job in COVID-19 and you're making money, you're doing a good job, man. Making non-nafqa for your family members, earning risk for your family members is sadqa. No matter how you do it, I don't really care. I think you all are doing awesome. Even if you're not making money, you will make money. Risk is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You guys are gonna reach there. You don't let these motivational things cage you. Just entrepreneurs are not that rich, man. I've seen people who just make organizations and become self-proclaimed CEOs, and they don't make that much money. You're making maybe more than them. They have more recognition because they're out there, they're speaking. That's more of them being extrovert, and you maybe being introvert. And we want to basically look at how personality also cages us in certain matters. Now let's look at the non-mirror image reverse. But in non-mirror image reverse, it will basically say that if you're not salary and you're not a poverty, then you're an absolute entrepreneur. Now an absolute entrepreneur can resonate to the non-mirror image reverse, basically parable to it. So that would be very plausible. Again, I'm not saying this is a fact, but we're seeing it as plausible. You think I'm making fun over here? The fun is when I see this in newspaper. I'm going to show you a non-mirror image in a newspaper clip, guys. This is 2020, and it was done in the COVID. So if you can go to the next slide. I want to see that people use these type of language patterns. Now, this was for COVID-19, and this was by a global, hedge, funds and private equity. They basically adapted this, language. If you read this, in the middle of March, Pfizer chief Albert, beamed into the WebEx's video call with the leaders of American pharmaceutical giant vaccine research and manufacturing groups. Now look at the statement. Not only that, the two teams hadn't. Not only that, the two teams hadn't stopped working late in the night on the robust development of the plan of Pfizer experiment on COVID-19 vaccine, but they also told Bora that they aim to making it available in lightning speed. So they're not communicating. This is such a confusing statement. They're saying, we're working on it, we're doing it with a super lightning speed, but we still don't know. But said so positively that if anybody's reading this, they feel that maybe the vaccine is going to come up next month. Kind of presupposes that, right? So I love this. I enjoy this. If you see these are all real-time articles. But and now when you see, why we're saying not, not, and not, because these are very good parables in terms of getting rid of depression. Now, for any person who comes in sense of depression, they're going to come in depression and they're going to hold a pen. Like let's say this pen is the problem. This pen is the depression. They're going to hold on to depression. They're going to cage themselves. Cage. They're not gauging. And now wherever they're looking at the problem. And nevertheless, where is the solution? The solution is everywhere else except where the problem is. And that's the challenge of a therapist and an interventionist. How do we basically get the client to, shift that focus, shift that antenna away from that problem? And let's now look at it. So when people come to me and they say, Arsalan, I'm divorced and I'm sad, I'm depressed, I ask them, well, what is not depression and what is not sadness? So if you go to the next slide, you're going to have fun. So let's say if somebody's feeling sad, let's try to talk about all the things that are not sad. So we're going to see the various examples, and you can put the enter. There are going to be 3 examples in that I've basically created. So for example, in order for circumstances to be depressing, the circumstances that surround the depression must not be depressing. For example, so while you're divorced, the problem may be depressing, but is spending time with children. Spending time with children does not equal to divorce, and it is not depressing. We got to get the client to shift. We got to get the client to, move out. Working out or exercising is not divorce. You see the importance of not over here? Although not is a really bad word to use, but again, if you use it properly in linguistics, it's going to get you to take massive actions. So exercising is not divorce, hence it is not depressing. We got to get the client to shift. That's where the therapeutic basically happens. And now these are examples continued. So we're going to see a few more examples in that context. Again, spending time with friends and other family members. Is that divorce? No, you just divorce somebody that is, your life partner, but you haven't divorced your friend. Driving success in your career is not divorce, man. That's not depressing, and that's not sad. That's not something does. Then maybe, so the places to start working with the clients is to help them overcome. And when we're overcoming, we want to blow and explode the boundaries. We don't want our, thinking to be limited or caged. We want to have measurement of tools and techniques, how to basically get out there and, burst through the noise. So these boundaries are amazingly important, and they're actually vital to determining where to begin with in terms of coaching and therapy. I love this as a phenomena, and this is something that I advocate. This is something that I would want to preach. I want you guys to use language and linguistics in terms of, creating really possibilities for you, not necessarily creating limitations for you. We want to break through those boundaries. I want you to take criticisms and sabotage those criticisms in terms of measuring that criticism might be a learning exposure for you. Maybe you could learn something from it. Maybe, why would you want to cage yourself in terms of when somebody said a comment to you or when said something to you? It's a beautiful, beautiful analogy. At the end of the day, that's what we're really, really looking forward to. I'll give you some other examples as well. You see, language is mystical. Grammar in the prehistoric ages was called actually grimoire. Yeah. Do you know what grammar, it originated from grimoire, and grimoire basically meant the book of magic, spells, and invocations. That's how it was. Grammar is powerful. You should, if you're learning a language, learn grammar first. Language is powerful. Language is something that basically is all about, cool stuff. So we basically want to, even NLP was called structure of magic. Therapy, psychology was called structure of magic. So that's how it goes, guys. And I hope you enjoyed this topic. I'm going to go towards certain questions, and we're going to, talk about them. Amazing. What's the difference between English and Urdu language and expression in the effect of our mind? So this is question. It highly depends on what is your mother language. What is the expressive language that you basically hold command to? So if you're Urdu speaking, I would highly encourage you to communicate in terms of Urdu, because that's where you're going to create massive amount of action. If you have a language that is secondary language, maybe focus more on having more positive adjectives, more positive adverbs, having, verbs, actionable verbs, putting things into action and format so that your subconscious and unconscious can digest it. And it gives a clear meaning to other people. Again, something else. Do we need global crisis management umbrella after COVID-19? Oh yeah. We need it. We need to protect ourselves because we want to get this. What are viruses? Let's talk about viruses. Viruses is not the COVID-19. The virus is the fear. Virus is the media. They're puking. They're puking content onto you. Creating so much of distress that you're already going through. So we want to have that antivirus to decipher what people are talking in terms of communication. So if I'm going to watch the news from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock and panic, I'm not creating action. I want my language, so I don't have to cage myself. I gotta gauge myself. I gotta figure out, what do I need to do in this moment? I loved Umer. How many of you, witnessed that when COVID-19 happened, all the training industry, went down, but Umer was there doing sometimes he was doing 2 sessions every single day. I was like, what? How is this guy taking so much massive action? You should have seen Farhad or Funworks generally at the time of COVID-19. Farhad and his entire team went ballistic. And these are the sessions that you guys enjoyed. You're sitting today at TRG Learn Fest because somebody didn't cage themselves to what is happening outside. So, there's an active poll. You got a poll, guys. So what are your takeaways from LAN-GAUGE or LAN-CAGE? And it'll be really exciting if you guys can put in your comments and, sections so that, it'll help us to basically understand more. But I want you to go out with a sense of inspiration. Create a powerful enchantment for yourself. The words that you say to yourself. Like, people ask me, Arsalan, it's going to be COVID-19. How are you going to do therapy? And I said, I'm going to do therapy like firefighters. Firefighters, when the fire burns, the firefighters are required. Now that the world is going to be depressed, I'm going to be in demand. I'm going to make that action happen. I don't want people to be depressed, but I got to take action. I got to get them out. I got to help them to explore possibilities. How beautiful, how much beauty there is in the world that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Ashraful makhlukat, free will. You ask me if I have free will. God basically says, I know every single action that you're going to take. So what is the free will? What makes us Ashraf? What makes us Ashraf is that our life journeys are maybe destined, or maybe the destiny has been written. But our purpose in this world is to understand why we took those decisions. Why did we do what we did? And that's powerful. If I can understand, if I hurt someone's feelings, I'm sorry, if I did maybe hurt someone's feelings, but what can I learn from it? That makes me Ashraf. My thinking parable of, basically looking into the quantum linguistics of, the breaking the boundaries and the noise and thinking how I could create that change and shift for people. So guys, that's one of the toughest thing was to cap this entire session into such a small domain. My shortest session is about 19 days. I don't know how I did this in 45 minutes. I think it's because of the love of all of you guys that are online. I'm really looking forward to interacting with you guys one-on-one. You guys need to connect, and don't worry about my phone numbers and email address. The entire TRG Learn Fest is going to support you in that. I want you to make these 6 days so meaningful. Go and attend especially the workshops, guys. Keynotes are not that important. Go to the workshops. The people who are putting really blood and sweat in terms of, creating massive amount of content that is going to create really good actionable results for you guys. I look forward to you guys to, doing all that. I wish you all the best. This is the time to grow. This is the time to basically come out of our, boundaries, explore, and see what we can do together as a, one unit. It's amazing. It's shifting us to values level of entrepreneurship. Everybody's looking for creating more movement in their reality, in their sense of the world or model of the world that they're dealing with. But if anybody says anything to you, if they come up to you, "Are tum kya train? Tumne kal to training shuru ki thi." If somebody comes up to you with that attitude, you look them into the eyes. You say, "It's okay. I'm gonna still do it. I don't care. I'm gonna measure my performance every single bit." And of course, even when I started from nothing. When Umer started, Umer didn't start from he named throughout the years. It's persistence. It's the language. It's what you communicate with yourself inside. You got to communicate well with this coconut. You got to talk this coconut out of the sense that it basically is caged for you. Get rid of the deletions, get rid of the generalizations, get rid of the distortions. Quick, I have 3 minutes. I have good 3 minutes. I am so particular about language. I experiment this on my wife. So when my wife basically comes and I have to tell her, what if I told my wife, hey honey, we're going to Bangkok, Thailand, and my wife replies back. Now listen to this reply. She says, I'm so looking forward to it. Imagine the scenery that we're going to look into and the places that we're going to see. She's a seer. She's talking about visual predicates. Her answer is in visual predicates. Look at the decipheration. Now, what if I ask her again, hey, honey, we're going to Bangkok, Thailand. And now her reply is something like this. Sounds good. I've been wanting to listen to that from your mouth. So thank you for saying that. It's like words are ringing, bells in my mind. I'm so excited. Now she's talking about auditory predicates. Now the response is very different. Now it's not visual. Visual is I can imagine it, and this sounds good. Very different, right? Even in the parable, let's go one step more. So what if I said to my wife, hey, let's go to Bangkok, Thailand, and she says, I am excited. It feels so good. Oh my God. And if you have those type of expressions, the client is kinesthetic. The client is feeling it, the touch, the kinesthetic. It's not visual. It's not auditory. It's kinesthetic. And what if I asked her, now this is the third one, which I really love. And that's called the internal dialogue, auditory digital. So I said, hey, honey, sweetheart, let's go to Bangkok, Thailand. And somebody would say, and my wife goes like this, paise hain? बैंक में कितने पड़े हुए हैं कब जाना है तारीख कौन सी तारीख पे पहुंचना है auditory digital not visual not auditory not kinesthetic but she's into internal dialogue processing self-talk auditory digital so many parables of language. Don't let language cage you guys. Expand exponentially. Use it as a measurement of instrument. Use those positivity. With that, thank you so much. I'm signing out. But again, I'm excited. The session is on. I want you to guys be here, comment. I'm going to go and move to my next segment with TRG Learn Fest. Thank you. Love you all.
All right, Assalamu alaikum. I believe that I'm in the show, as the heading over there says. So big Assalamu alaikum to all of you. This is Umer Khan, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be talking to you for the next 30 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, you have spent a hectic day, I hope, a day full of learning, listening to some amazing insights, and have probably gotten a lot of answers to the challenges that you have. This talk is not going to give you answers. We are going to do what we love doing the most, asking questions. So I hope by the end of these 30 minutes, you will leave with many more questions than you joined. So if we are ready, let's talk about what COVID has done to all of us. We find ourselves in a situation जहां पे हम देख रहे हैं कि यार कितना कुछ है solve करने वाला. The world as we know have changed. But can we solve everything at our hands, or do we have to focus on some areas? Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know the answers, but I do know the questions for you to ask. And we hope that if you ask the right questions, you will know the right problem and you will know what to solve. Take the example of the Learn Fest. Now, there are multiple problems that the team of Umer and Sarah and everybody else is trying to solve. Now, have they been able to solve every single problem? But hopefully, they have been able to focus on the right ones. And hence, the results are for you to see. So फिर प्रॉब्लम्स होती कैसे हैं? हम सब बहुत सारा कंटेंट लिटरेचर देख चुके हैं, पढ़ चुके हैं, जो हमें बताता है कि यार प्रॉब्लम की डेफिनेशन कैसे करते हैं. What is the right way to define a problem? But what if you keep on defining the problems, but you are not focusing on the right problems? What if you are focusing on the wrong problems? What if, as Stephen Covey says, that you are barking on the wrong ladder? So by that, it means that you have learned how to climb that ladder. लेकिन क्या हम लोगों ने ये मिलके आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया है कि ये जो लैडर है ये सही वॉल के अगेंस्ट लगी हुई है? So with all our techniques, theories, understanding of trying to solve the problems, are we focusing on the right problems? Because if we find ourselves climbing the wrong ladder, we are going to climb really, really fast. But once we reach the top, we will probably find out that we are looking at a neighbor's ghar, और वहां से हमें, obviously, we are not going to be too welcome. So if you want to identify ladder you want to pick, then you must also identify what problems to solve. So problems होती किस तरह की हैं? Let's just say professional problems. अब आप नई CEO लग गए हैं किसी जगह पे, आपने एक नई कंपनी ज्वाइन की है, and these are your first few days. Well, you will not really have a lot of control because you are going to be given a list of problems. You've been hired to solve something. You are an HR head. You have been hired to bring about a certain kind of a change. So these are professional problems. The thing about professional problems is that no matter how many problems you solve, they are not going to get exhausted. The more problems you solve, the more problems keep coming up. And then you have personal problems. Now, personal problems भी जितनी भी आप solve करेंगे, problems तो और आएंगी. But they at least, for example, building capacity, doing something about your health, improving a relationship, all of these will at least give you some new learning and will probably be able to help you utilize your time. But at the same time, these problems are still going to remain for you. And then comes, as I call them, the societal or the social problems. These are the things which your friends will put forward to you. These are the favors that people are going to ask for you. These are your loved ones who are going to come to you and say, can you solve this for me? Or these can come from right within your heart because this is the cause you believe in. You want to solve a problem for the society, for the mahalla you live in, for the country you are a citizen of. You see an injustice happen and it impacts you. This speaks to you. It means a lot to you and you want to solve that. So ladies and gentlemen, if we have these three set of problems and many more, obviously under each you have interpersonal problems, you have your goal related problems, you have all kinds of problems. How do we know what to solve? तो फिर ऐसा करते हैं, to try and solve the problem, let's try and create a little bit of a basic filter. So सबसे पहले तो हम ये करते हैं कि पहली चीज we have to ask ourselves is कि क्या control भी है या नहीं है? Is this something we can control? Is this something which is internal or is this something which is external? I mean, that's classic, right? I mean, are you spending or investing your time in trying to solve something which you don't even have control over? I mean, you've had many theories, and this talk is not about trying to, talk about the same. So we are not going to invest too much time talking about what can you control and what you cannot. But probably a childhood prayer mere zehn mein aati hai. This is probably one of the earliest memories I have of a poster in my room which said, "Oh God, please give me the courage to change what I can, the patience to accept what I cannot, and the wisdom to see the difference." Okay? So if you have that wisdom to see the difference, the next step for you is to try and visualize the problems and see if you are able to solve any one, what can you gain out of it? So is the gain important enough? Is that large enough? Is that something that that gets you excited to try and go up that route, try to walk on that road and try to solve that? And if that speaks to your heart, then why not? Then probably that's a problem that you need to solve. And along with that comes the third filter that you put yourself to. And that is, what if you don't solve a problem? Can you bear the consequences? Are you ready to accept the challenges? Now, for everything you do, there will be many things that you are deciding not to do. For every gain that you get, there are going to be lots of consequences for the things that you don't get. How do they weigh against each other? But my friends, that's a very basic filter that you are going to be applying to try and zone in into finding out what problems to solve. The more interesting question, however, is why are you trying to solve the problems? Are you reacting to something? Or do you have the courage to direct your life? Now, as many of you will provide, it doesn't really, many of you will say that you don't have control over it. I have joined, okay, I have hired a new, a person who has joined as a consultant in my team, and we have given him a task and said, कि जी आपने ये करना. That person can come to me after this talk and say, कि उमर भाई आप तो कह रहे थे कि यार कंट्रोल होता है, आपने तो मुझे पूरा इतना सारा काम लोड कर दिया कि मेरे पास तो कोई चॉइस ही नहीं है कि मैं कोई अपनी मर्जी का काम कर सकूं. Well, my friends, that's the question. The choice is always there. Because you have to understand if you have the right mix. And the right mix means, what are you focusing on? Are you spending your entire time trying to solve the crisis or the problems that have been handed over to you? Or have you really asked yourself that who you are? What is the purpose of you in your life? And your decisions directing you towards that purpose. Because my friends, the test is always in the moment. Life provides you many of these moments. The choices you make in that test determines your future. If you and me are not clear of where we want to end up as human beings, then what happens is that we start our lives, as somebody says, कि हम पैदा होते हैं, हमें घर वाले कहते हैं कि यार अच्छा चलो पढ़ लो, यही टाइम है, बचपन में जो पढ़ लोगे उसका बाद में फायदा होगा. आप नर्सरी पास करके मैट्रिक में जाते हो, लेवल्स में जाते हो, and then you are told, okay, now your problem is that you have to get results over here. Because if you get results, you will end up in a good college. If you end up in a good college, you are told, this is your time, इसमें पढ़ लो because अच्छी यूनिवर्सिटी में दाखिला मिल जाएगा. और अच्छी यूनिवर्सिटी में दाखिला मिल जाता है तो उसके बाद हम कहते हैं कि चलो यार थोड़ी सी और मेहनत कर लो, बिकॉज गेस व्हाट, नौकरियां तो बहुत कम है, इकोनॉमी तो बहुत डाउन है. अगर तुमने अब कुछ सीख लिया, अगर तुमने उन चंद लोगों में से आ गए जिनको अभी जॉब मिल जाएगी, तो देन यू विल प्रोबेबली, और जिनको ऐसी अपॉर्चुनिटी मिल जाएगी, तो देन यू विल प्रोबेबली हैव अ ब्राइट फ्यूचर. सो इन्वेस्ट एवरीथिंग दैट यू हैव इन दिस टाइम एंड मेक समथिंग ऑफ योरसेल्फ. एंड देन वी स्टार्ट द फर्स्ट फ्यू इयर्स ऑफ अ करियर. Once we start the first few years of career, guess what क्या कहा जाता है? अभी तो टाइम है, कर लो जो करना है, because ये पहले कुछ साल है, फिर शादी हो जाएगी. शादी हो जाएगी तो क्या करोगे? फिर शादी हो जाती है. शादी के बाद आप कहते हो कि अच्छा चलो यार, oh fine, I have done everything that I was told, now I have choice in my hand. But you are still focusing on the same problem because you are told कि अभी तो शादी के कुछ साल हैं, फिर बच्चे हो जाएंगे, अभी मेहनत कर लो. बच्चे होते हैं तो बच्चे छोटे होते हैं, अभी मेहनत कर लो. फिर क्या होता है? बच्चे बड़े हो जाते हैं, और फिर क्या होता है? फिर आप अपने बच्चों को कहते हो अभी तो टाइम है, मेहनत कर लो. So what happens, my friends? The cycle continues. Do we control anything in our life? Do you decide what problems you wanted to solve, or we have been led on this path where we felt that we had no choice on what problems to solve? Have we led a life we wanted to do, Or have we been forced to lead a life because of the choices, because of the problems those were presented to us and we were forced to do it? Do we know the right mix? Yes, you and me will be focusing on crisis. Yes, you and me are focusing on things which we don't have control to, and we must go out and solve. But in that mix, क्या कोई ऐसी भी चीज है जो मैं अपने लिए कर रहा हूं? What is that right mix? How many problems that I do for others and how many things that I solve for things that I believe in? I don't know. That's your mix for you to find out. What appeals to you? Are you happy living a life that others are directing for you? Or you want to decide that my life is going to be determined by the choices that I make? My friends, take an example of a new government coming in. क्या होएगा? अच्छा यार, एजुकेशन नहीं है, अच्छा यार, इकोनॉमी के हालात बुरे हैं, ऊपर से तो हेल्थ का क्राइसिस भी आ गया, अब हम क्या करें? कोविड-19 के बाद, what is the area that we should pay our attention or focus on? Should we be focusing only on the health side, or should we also try and save the poor? Should we also focus on the economy, or should we focus only on protecting health? Now, I don't know. If I was in power, my choices will be very different, maybe, to the people who are in power right now. But whoever get to make that question, my friend, whoever get to ask that question needs to first of all ask, okay, what do you stand for? Because you may feel that the problems are not yours to decide. Absolutely. You don't get to choose कि किस घर में पैदा हुए हैं. You don't get to choose a lot of things that happen to you in life. But you certainly get to choose the reaction to the things that happen to you. So, my friends, as you browse through these list of trainers and activities and learnings and try to see what to focus on your life, and you get inspired by somebody else doing something, ask yourself, is this for you? Ask yourself that the answer or the solution to this problem, will that be meaningful? Will that give you joy? There are two kinds of problems. Problems that make you happy, that give you joy, that give you meaning. The solution of those problems make you happy and give you joy. And then there are problems, the solution to those take everything away from you. What are you focusing on? How many of the problems that give you joy versus how many of the problems that take a lot out of you? Will every decision bring forth many more decisions? Will the solution of a problem come hand in hand with many other problems? Absolutely. For example, I have a friend who's, mashallah, say very, very ambitious and has her priorities right for her family and for everybody around her. However, despite that, there are challenges, there are problems that needs to be solved. Working in a particular organization, अच्छा, ये कल्चर सूट नहीं कर रहा, ये ग्रोथ वैसी नहीं है जहां पे मैं जाना चाहता था या चाहती थी, ये ऐसी environment नहीं है where I feel I am being able to do justice with who I am as a person. So what? Okay, I'm ready to make a move. But what if you make the move? Where will you end up? You probably end up into a situation where something else in your life is going to be challenged. So, by focusing on a problem that was close to your heart and the solution of which was bringing you joy, is in parallel also making it tough for you. Probably making it tough for your family to be together. Probably making it tough for your children to be in an environment where they were used to be. How do you make that choice? The only way to make that choice, my friends, is to get on a journey. When we do our leadership programs and we go on those experiential journeys, we encourage everybody to challenge their thoughts and ask themselves this very question. If I ask you right now, how many problems are you trying to solve at this point in time? Most of us will give us a list, a huge list of problems that we face. And sometimes as we did that as an example in a training a few days ago, the moment we asked that, the number of problems that came up were much more than anybody thought कि वो possible है. So पहले पूछा किसी से कि कितनी problems है जी 10 हैं. किसी ने कहा 15 हैं. और जब list down करने लगे तो पता चला कि जी वो एक list बढ़ती जा रही है. And then we had to say अच्छा भाई रुक जाओ अभी तो. How many of those problems are you actually trying to solve? How many of those problems are you actually trying to find a solution for? And if given a choice, your active actions for the solutions of those problems, are they for the problems जिनका solution आपको joy देगा? या they are for the problems जिनका solution आपसे और बहुत कुछ ले लेगा? आप किस चीज पे फोकस करना चाहते हैं? For that, it is important to understand what you stand for. As we try to look at this world post-COVID, or environmental understanding bhi create ho gayi, new definitions for the organizations have come up. Yaar, ab wo zamana nahi hai. Ab we will probably not have to focus on the profits or the single focus on the profits that it used to be, and do lip service to all the things as the environment and as the people health and as the motivation. Now it is probably time to do something meaningful about that. But I ask you, what is the guarantee? If we really haven't dig deep and really haven't understood what we stand for, as things start to improve, the businesses, the organizations which haven't done too well in these past 5 to 6 months, what is stopping them from doing what they were doing previously, doing it even more aggressively? Just because we have experienced something which has challenged us to think differently, in this moment, probably our focus is on the things or on the priorities where we feel we should have focused on. But then the reasons for making the wrong choices haven't changed. They're still very much there. If you and me start a journey with the same challenges as we had started started a journey earlier, probably the answers are also going to be the same. So चलें फिर ऐसा करते हैं कि अपने आप से कुछ सवाल पूछ लेते हैं. और I will like to ask yourself, do you really know what you stand for? Take a minute and write down on a piece of paper or on your cell phone, in a sentence, what you stand for. Once you do that, ask yourself a second question. How many actions are you taking in trying to solve the problems that amplify what you stand for? Is there a gap? Now, is that gap because of the situation around you? Or can you do something about it? Are you going to only focus on the things that have been given to you? Or have you done something about trying to analyze and pinpoint which we want to improve? A chief selector, a coach, and all of us know who we're talking about right now, of a cricket team. What's the first thing that person should do? Will what that person do in our circumstances of the Pakistani cricket? क्या उसके जो आंसर्स होंगे वो आपके आंसर से मिलना जरूरी है? my friends, the actions which that particular person will take in his capacity as a leader will be echoed in the history. The actions will define the story. What story do you want to write? How much of the problems bring you joy? If you have the answer to that question, you will be able to solve and lead a much better life. I will like to stay connected, and I look forward to hearing from you on various social medias, LinkedIn, Facebook, and we hope that together we can create a future we desire. Thank you very much. This is Umer Khan signing off. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Suhail Zindani and I'm very excited to be part of LearnFest Digital 2020. To be specific, I'll be speaking on the second day, but let me be honest. All the days are so exciting. They're filled up with so many amazing thought leaders that I really don't think you can afford to miss anything out of the entire agenda. Everyone talks about, why you should attend their session. I just thought of making it more Suhail Zindani like, huh? So let me tell you why you should not attend my program. Please don't attend my program if you fall into any of these three categories. A, you think that you're already the best. Because if you think you're already the best, वैसे ही मैं आपसे बहुत डरता हूँ, and I think चूंकि आप ऑलरेडी आप बेस्ट बन चुके हैं तो वैसे ही आपका दुनिया में रहने का कोई खास जवाब बनता नहीं है. सो डोंट बी पार्ट ऑफ माय प्रोग्राम. सेकंड, डोंट बी पार्ट ऑफ माय प्रोग्राम इफ यू आर प्रीटी कंफर्टेबल विद व्हाट यू नो एंड द कॉन्सेप्ट्स दैट यू हैव कॉन्फिडेंस अबाउट. बिकॉज आई कांट वर्क विद कॉन्फिडेंट पीपल. मुझे बहुत घबराहट होती है उनसे बिकॉज उनको they're so clear about everything they know. So in this program it's not about people who are absolutely comfortable about what they know, because I'm going to make your life difficult. So please don't come to this program. Third, if you think you know everything about leadership and there's nothing more that you can discover about the subject, because in this session we're going to break leadership into pieces. So I look forward to my session. I've just shared with you who should not attend my session. बाकी जो सादे लोग हैं, they can opt for the session that I'm offering. I'll be on the second day, that's 11th of August, and my session starts at 10 and it's still 10:45. It's a keynote, I suppose. I look forward to all of you being part of this wonderful event. As I said, the thought leaders who are presenting at this event they're amazing. And last but not the least, thank you TRG. I would particularly like to thank Umer. Umer, you have done a fantastic job.
Hi guys, this is Max Babri and I am wonderful. And I'll catch you all the wonderful people on the 9th. Hi guys, this is Max Babri, and I am wonderful. And I'll catch you all the wonderful people on the 9th, or is it on the 11th? On the 11th, it's Tuesday at 10:30 at the TRG Learn Fest. And you know, TRG is a remarkable organization, and I've known all the senior people in TRG for a very, very long time. And they're especially kind and positive towards me, invite me to everything. And I try to shy away, and I say, no, I don't want to do it this time. I don't want to be there. But they unleashed Umer Khan on me this time, and he's such a convincing person that I had no choice but to accept. And of course, I love a lot of people, and I love, you know, the big boss and Kamran and Shireen and Fakia, and all these are my special friends, and I have great fraternity with it, and all the other people that are participating in this event. So I'll catch you on Tuesday at 10 p.m. at TRG, and I'll help you understand how wonderful you really are. And you are remarkable. Looking forward to see you guys.